so we're going to get on to the demo now for the Bird of Paradise. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that flower. So I'm featuring native flowers of Florida for my demos this month. So last week I did the blanket flower. And if you didn't get a chance to see that, like I said, go back and watch last week's live and you'll get a chance to look at that. This week, I'm going to be doing the Bird of Paradise. Okay, so that's a much larger flower with much bigger leaves. And it's a nice flower to learn how to paint because, especially in one-stroke painting, because the elements of this flower are very easily stroked by our brushes and the way that we load them with the double loading and blending, shading, and highlighting all in one stroke. So just a little information about the Bird of Paradise as it relates to like its symbology. It symbolizes many things, which I didn't know when I went and did my research. Success and excellence, right? It's a royalty flower. So apparently in a lot of like shields or family crests for royal families, you will see a Bird of Paradise in there. Okay, obviously it symbolizes paradise, paradise being different for lots of people, but paradise from a Christian perspective being heaven. Okay, symbolizes optimism. Apparently it's also the flower for the 9th wedding anniversary. So if you are celebrating your 9th wedding anniversary sometime this year, why don't you send your spouse some Bird of Paradise flowers, a nice cut bouquet. Okay, also symbolizes freedom, joy, and faithfulness. So all of those things in one flower because of all the different colors and the proudness of the way that this flower holds its crown up is the reason for a lot of that symbology. Okay, let's get started with our Bird of Paradise. All right, so I did a sample to share with you from the photograph that I shared on my Facebook post. Okay, and so I want you to see some of the simple colors that we're using. We've got some oranges and reds in here, and some white and yellow, and then I added some blue. Now there's different varieties, okay, depending on the variety may change up some of these colors. Some might tend towards more of a yellow, some tend towards more of a red, and then those colors carry out in the top of the pod where the flower pops out of. Okay, so this is a pod and it opens up and then these rise up out of that pod. Okay, and then they have these gorgeous big leaves, and I'm going to share with you how we create those as well. Okay, all right, so I have a little sketch here that just saves me a little time so I can do the painting and stroke work and not have to worry about placement too much, but you don't have to sketch. All right, so here's my colors for tonight. All right, we have cobalt, wicker white, daffodil yellow. This is vivid orange. You can also use pure orange. I like vivid because it's just a little bit less see-through. It's a little more opaque in its color. It's got a little bit of white added to them. And this is apple red. You can use any red you like. I had apple red. You can use cardinal red, lipstick red, Christmas red, whatever you like. Sap and citrus green. Okay, and then I have some floating medium here ready when I need it. And I will because I'm on paper. All right, so here we go. Let's come down just a little closer here. And I'm going to show you how we get this stroke. So notice here on the flower, as this pops up out of the pod, part of that pod side on the back side of the flower is visible, and then you can take the time to add it in there or you don't have to, but I'm going to show you real quick how to add that very quickly before you put in the rest of the stroke work. Okay, so that can dry and then we can get on with the rest of our petals being stroked in and then finish up with the front stroke. But before I do any of that, I want to go ahead and get this leaf stroked in because my design has it kind of touching and coming into this area here. So first we're going to put our backstroke on there, and we're going to stroke our petals, and then we'll do our leaf and then our final front stroke. Okay, so I have a 16 flat here. I'm going to get that damp, lay it on paper towel, and then I'm going to grab some medium on my brush right away, and I'm going to come over here and side stroke some of that vivid orange. Okay, so I'm going to just bring my brush right up next to the puddle and pull that color onto the side of my brush. Okay, now while I've got that, I'm going to just side stroke a tiny bit of the red as well. Let me get a little more of that orange and work it in with my red. Okay, so it's going to make it just a little bit deeper color, and that's going to go in the background. So here we come down here, right in there, and so right along this ridge, I'm going to lay my brush down and make some ruffles. Now most of this is not going to be seen, and you could just go from here and skip over there, but I like to go ahead and do the whole line just in case any of it is visible. Okay, so that's going to represent the back side of this little pod that's opened up, and if I wasn't on white it would show a little better, but I am going to side stroke just a little bit of white and add very quickly a little white highlight on top of that. Okay, all right, now I'm going to wipe that brush off, and I'm going to go ahead and load with all of the orange. Okay, so this is all vivid orange on my brush, and then I'm going to come over here and side load the apple red. And while I'm thinking about it, I just want to mention to you, I do have a YouTube channel, and on that channel I don't have a lot of videos out yet because I spend a lot of my time producing Donna's YouTube videos, but I do have some about brush loading, and I know a lot of you struggle with getting a good brush load, and so if you want to go to it's youtube.com and then look for Michelle My Belle Designs, you will find the videos out there, and that one is there. Okay, so I've got this, and then I'm going to come over here and side stroke just a touch of the yellow on the orange edge. All right, so I've got a darker orange because I combined the red with the orange, and then I'm going to put a little highlight of yellow on that. I'm going to get a little medium and work that into my brush colors as well. And then here we go. So I'm starting on the left side, and I'm going to work my way forward. So I want you to see these petals again right there. Okay, and so we're going to start with the first one, and it's going to come right in here. All right, now I'm not going to necessarily bring it all the way down into the pod yet, and I'll show you why in just a second. But I'm going to stroke out, keeping the light to the outer edge, stand to my chisel, reverse, and then apply pressure and stand back up. Okay, now if you don't have a good blend, I've got a little bit of harsh red line right there, so I can come right in here and do a few of those strokes over and blend it a little better, and then stroke back. All right, so if you are struggling with creating this type of petal, you can always break it up into two segments and stroke out or back. 1, 2. Okay. All right, picking up more of my colors, and now I'm going to grab quite a bit more of the yellow. Okay, as I'm working my way forward, I'm going to brighten up this yellow or this outer edge as it lays over each of these. Okay, so I'm going to come right in here. I'm on the chisel. I'm going to stroke out, pressure, release, pressure. Okay, then you stand to that chisel, reverse, then pressure, release pressure, stand back to the chisel. All right, so staying out here, when I'm out at this tip out here, it's no pressure. All right, and then when you start to slide back, then you add the pressure, and then release it again when you get to the bottom so that you have skinny strokes. All right, so again, if you need a better blend, you can always come back over it and restroke it. Okay, so that's how you get those fine points at the top and bottom of your stroke. You've got to take the pressure off the handle of the brush, and then you can get a much skinnier stroke when you're vertical on the brush. Okay, all right, it's very important to blend on your palette before you stroke. Okay, so now we're going to start to overlap some of these. We're going to go skinny on the chisel, push, stand up, chisel, reverse direction, still on the chisel, now push, stand up, chisel. Okay, So I lost a little bit of my color there. And so I'm going to come back over it and stroke it. So that's the stroke. You're going chisel, push, out, reverse, chisel, push, back. Okay. All right, so next, now I'm going to add a little more highlight to this. And so instead of yellow, now I'm going to side stroke some white on that orange edge, keeping my dark center. And this just helps you to get variation in color. So I've got some light white. All right, so I'm going to come from right here and I'm going to stroke out. So now you can see this standing right out in front of that last one I did. And we get a little skinnier stroke, okay? So changing up the pressure of your stroke obviously is going to give you a thinner or fatter stroke, okay? All right, so now I want to come in front of these and have some smaller ones. And again, I want those to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to stick with this white side stroked edge that I have here. And so right from this spot, I'm going to come up and I'm going to stroke right in front of these and not make it quite as tall. All right, and then come back and stand up, okay? Now if you get a little sputtered edge like I have right there, just side stroke more color, come back and restroke the stroke. All right, so that's pretty much all those strokes are the same. All right, and then you can decide how many of these you want to layer. All right, and I'm gonna come right in here. Now I want you to see how these two don't quite stand out against each other. So if this one is too light, then I've got to come back and get darker, put darker over the lighter one. So I went back to my yellow. And there it goes, pops right out. See that? So pressure, stand, reverse, pressure, and pull it back. Okay, so we've got all of our orange leaf or petal strokes here. We have one left that we have to do, and that is this one that has, it's kind of more of a spike that comes straight out like this. And then it has attached to it this bluish purple petal part to it, okay? So I'm going to come back to my darker colors, my orange and red, okay? And I'm going to come right in here, and this one is just going to go straight out. There is no return on this, okay? So you're just going to push it out and slide to the tip, okay? So you're starting at an angle into this pod and about moderate pressure and slide to the tip. All right, so that's all of the petals that we're going to stroke for that are this color. Okay, so I'm going to clean my brush real quick. And then we're going to do our blue petals. So these blue guys are smaller, and I'm going to go to my 8 flat now, and I'm going to load it with cobalt. About 2/3 cobalt, and I'm going to come over here and side stroke some white. Okay. All right, so I've got cobalt on this corner, and I'm going to side stroke white. Smaller brushes, this is how you load them so that you still get a good double load without getting muddy really fast. I'm going to get just a little bit of medium on that. You know, normally we don't do that with the smaller brushes, but I am on paper. Now I'm going to let this dry, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to stroke this one. Okay, so this is, it's got like 2 parts to it, so it's dark under here. All right, so there's a little like U shape or V shape right there. Okay, so the light part is down going into the pod, and then it comes back up like that. Okay, then we're going to reverse the brush and put the light to the top and drag the dark behind. So we're going to touch it like this on the angle, sweep that bottom corner of the brush down, and then stand it up as you pull it out to a tip, just like that. Okay, Now this should be pretty close to dry, so I can go ahead and do that stroke. So I'm going to load my brush up here. So this one has, on this edge of the petal is where the blue part attaches itself. All right, so there's a short little line right here along that front edge. And then you skip up above and you come right in here, and you're going to push and slide as you release up to the tip. Okay, now I have all of that dark in there, and now I need to put some light. So I'm going to wipe that off, and I'm going to come right in here and just pick up white on the chisel edge of my brush. All right, so I've got white right there. All right, and so right in here I'm going to touch. So past the end of this curve, right about there, and I'm just going to slide that up inside. Not completely covering the blue that I put, so you don't want to put as much pressure. And then you're going to do a similar thing right inside here. So a touch and slide like a daisy petal stroke right in there. All right, and that's going to give you that depth you need. Now, with this same brush, I have all white on here. I'm going to come over here and side, let me do it right here. Side stroke, oops, that's got blue in it. I don't want the blue. Let me clean that first. I forgot there was blue in it. Let me get white, okay? And I'm going to come right here and side stroke some orange. All right? Okay, so it's just a pale, pale orange with some white. And what you're going to do here is you're going to attach all these petals. They've got like these pale whitish orange husks on them that come up like that. Okay, so for each one of these petals, you're going to come up around it like that and grab it like that. Okay, so and then these pull back into the inside of that pod. But don't lose the white. You want that white in there, and this has a curve, a sweep like this. All right, sweep like that. And you're just going to attach them all. Okay, so they're all coming up out of that pot. All of this is going to get covered up. Okay, so now we're ready to work with our green colors. Okay, so I'm going to go to my 3/4 flat. All right, big brush. And we're going to work on our big leaf right here first. So let me back out just a little, because that's really close. Okay, so you can see this leaf right here. So I'm going to double load my 2 greens, and we're going to start with those. I'm going to get some medium on my brush, dip in the medium, and then work that in. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to come up. It's good to do a stem first so that you can see where you're going to or from for this type of leaf, okay? So now what we want to do is we're going to come right up here at the tip of the outside. So this is the outside of my leaf. And you can do this as well. You can do an outline like that and like this, okay? It cuts through this leaf, this part right there. I'm just going to go ahead and do the strokes, and then we'll stroke over it with the pod for the flower. All right, so from this tip, you're going to pull at an angle back to the stem. And I don't like to leave heavy lines of paint, and I like all those streaky striations. So I'm not using pressure very much, but maybe about 1/4 pressure. But see how it left a heavy line right there? I then come back and I do this, and look at those pretty streaks of color I get. And it didn't really mess up my brush at all. And come right in here and do another one. Pressure, and you get a nice stripe. And then come back in here and you get a nice streak. See that? So now I want more of the dark green in this bottom part of this petal of this leaf. And I'm making sure that I'm coming along the edge of my leaf and then pulling down to the stem, okay? But all of my angles are the same so that my leaf doesn't look like it's coming from different directions. So this is all going to be dark, and then I finish right down there. Okay, so you're just on mostly the chisel edge with a slight amount of pressure. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and turn so that you can see, and I can see. All right, and so again from the tip, we're going to pull these back at an angle from the outside edge of the leaf. Okay, so then I come back and I kind of swipe over any heavy lines. And now I want these lighter out here. I'm going to go ahead and get more of the light color on my brush again. Okay, and just so that I'm sure I've got the right angle, there we go. So hopefully now you can see and I can see. Yep. Okay, so then we're coming down, and you can even pull it slight curve along the stem as you come down. See, that's a slight curve. I just don't want to see that outside line of my leaf that I stroked on there. That was really just for me to know where to start. Okay, and so you could see it. All right, so coming back and getting streaks. I'm liking these streaks. So I'm not making it all one color by overstroking it. All right, more paint or medium if you need it. And we're on the chisel, and we're coming along that curve and filling this in. Okay, so that's our leaf, and then you come right to the stem. Now, so we finished the leaf. It looks like this. Okay, and there's a couple of things you can do at this point. You can leave it just like that, which looks fine, or now you can come and introduce some more color. So I'm going to do a little side load of white here. See that? And I'm going to come along on my chisel edge like this, and then I'm going to lean my brush in with that white edge, following the darks, following the outside edge of my leaf, and then I'm going to stand it back up and stand it up. So that gives it a little bit of a curve, right? You can come along here, so you're curling it in, and then you're standing it back out and coming along that chisel edge. Okay, leaving it dark under there will help it stay to like it's a part of this leaf. And if you lose that dark, you can always come in here and stroke over it. Roll the brush in your fingers and then come back along. Okay, just try not to have any start and stop points. All right, so that gives it a pretty little curved look. And then the other thing I like to do, you can wipe off your brush even a little bit, and you, excuse me, you can come and pick up some of the colors that you're using, sorry, in the painting. So I'm going to pick up just a little bit of orange here on my chisel edge, and I'm going to come from here and streak that in. All right, and you can do that with yellow or white or some of the red. All right, but just adding some of that streaks of color will help tie the leaf and give it just a little bit of a punch of color. Don't make it all too much, okay? So those are a couple of different fun things you can do with those leaves. All right, and then I like to come in on my chisel edge with my light trailing, light color, up through the center and restroke that stem. Okay, and you can go with these, you can go actually close to or almost all the way out to the point, and that will keep it, that'll still look accurate. Okay, so they have a pretty thick stem, and you can even side load just a touch of white if you want to add some highlight in a few spots. See that? Lighten it up a little bit. Okay, so lots of fun ways you can approach that leaf. Now, I'm going to come back to my colors here, and I'm going to set that brush aside. And get my 16, and I'm going to get some medium. And I'm going to side, so I loaded medium on my brush, and now I'm going to side load some red. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. All right. Right at the base of where this stem meets the pod, there's a little bit of red, and you can do this before or after, but I like to do it before. And so you're going to come up like this and down like that, okay? And then that will tie into the pod part, so you can come across the front with some red like this, or you can even do orange if you prefer. There's, like I said, lots of variations, but you're going to come right across the front here like that. All right, and this whole thing is going to come across the top of this leaf. All right, but I wanted to put that in first, and then we're going to come in with our leaf colors. Okay, and I'm going to touch right in here. And I'm going to stroke right across the face of that leaf like that, okay? And so you've got that orange. You can even side load a little bit of orange on your loaded brush so that you can keep that color tone. And it stands right up to the chisel like that. Now, green over green, you're going to want to do some shading once that's dry so that the pod stands out from the leaf. Okay, now I'm going to come right back in here and darken that, but I'm leaving some of that red showing. See that? And the orange is in my green, my light green. Okay, now more of the two greens. We're going to come right in here on my chisel edge. Let me back out just a little so you can see this a little better. All right, and so right here I'm going to touch and I'm going to push so that it makes my top of my brush rounded, and then I'm going to pull down. This is a thick stalk on these, okay? Okay, so we've created this rounded part that nestles nicely right inside this red area, and you've got some pretty streaks going down to give your stem some shaded value. Now, if you want to, you can give it a little more depth on one side by pulling some dark down. So you angled slightly and you're leading with the light color, pulling that dark down on this side, okay? And then you've got a highlight right there. All right, so now what I want to do to finish this off, I'm going to come in with my clean 16 or 12 is fine. I'm picking up floating medium. And I'm going to come side stroke some of this dark green, the sap green. All right, and so right here underneath, let me smooth that out just a little bit better. I might have a little too much. Right here underneath this pod, I'm going to create, so I'm on the flat of my brush, and I'm going to create a shadow. This has to be dry before you can do this, okay? So on paper, the nice thing is it dries fairly quickly. There we go. All right, so now you've got a shadow being cast by that. Now, the other thing I can do, after I've got all those colors in, I clean that brush off again, grab some floating medium, and I'm going to side load a little bit of white. You can do a little bit of white, you can grab a little bit of orange. Okay. And you can come, see this is probably going to be too wet still, but you can come in here and highlight the opening of this pod so that you've got that front and back and there's a little dark. And if you lose your dark, just grab a little bit of red and put it right back in there on top. So you've got that pod division front and back. Okay, so don't ever let an an oops stroke keep you from being happy with your paintings. Just stroke right over it. I want to put a little more red in there. I can do that too. All right, so hope you enjoyed that demonstration, and happy to share. I'll share the final picture. I'll just scoot back out here real quick and show it to you. And then you can take a screenshot or come back and watch it later to do, and you can print that out if you want. I saw somebody ask if I was going to share the pattern. I don't do patterns, especially not for my demos necessarily. The only time I do patterns is if it's needed. This was just a sketch, but you can take a quick screenshot of that if you want, and you can then use that to do your own pattern, trace over it, print it, trace over it, and sketch it yourself. Okay, but you don't have to. It doesn't require a pattern to do this. Okay, that wasn't the purpose of my sketching this out. That was just more to make sure that I had placement correct for myself. Okay. All right, guys, so that is our demo. I hope you enjoyed it,